I'm going to save you $20,000 by the end of this video. You know that scene in The Martian where your man is taking all that stuff out of the thing to make it lighter? Yeah, that's what we're going to do. We're going to science the shit out of comic production. If you're new, I'm John, a comic creator from the UK, and I make videos about comic creation every week. But before I start, I'm going to throw a load of caveats at you first. Actually, there's just one, which is that comic prices vary wildly, especially in indie comics. There's a lot to consider, but I'm going to cover it all. And I'll start with the most influential cost to your comic, and that is the art, or specifically the artist. At the low end, the art can cost either nothing or like $10 or $20 per page. That may be tempting, but if you've poured your soul into your script, then why would you cheap out on the art? You might be incredibly lucky and stumble upon an artist who is unbelievably good, but is selling themselves short. But for the most part, if you pay for cheap art, you're going to get substandard work. So we're going to be looking at about $100 per page for the line work. Now, this is an area that trips a lot of people up. Do you know what this is? It's sometimes called grayscales, sometimes called ink wash. Importantly, it's not line work. So if an artist agrees to do the line work for you, they're not necessarily expecting to do this. You need to be explicit and give examples of what you want, including the ink wash, if that's what you want. For me, if I were charging $100 per page for the lines, then I'd consider increasing my price upwards of 50% to include the ink wash. So just keep that in mind. The second most influential cost is the color. If the line work is going to cost you around about $100 per page, then the colorist will cost around $80 per page. Again, these are ballpark and kind of random figures, but the colorist tends to be slightly cheaper than the line artist. The third most influential cost to your comic are the things that you can do yourself versus paying someone else to do them. You may not be an artist, but you can pass as an editor or a letterer if you really put your mind to it. An editor for a 100-page comic is going to cost you a few $100s at least, and a letterer will probably charge anywhere between $10 and $20 per page. So you could easily save at least $500 just by doing it yourself. The other thing to consider is the cover art. This is the single most expensive piece of art that you're going to commission, but it's arguably the most important. We all do judge books by their covers. So this can go from $200 at the very low end to around about $800 for like a semi-professional fee. I'm going to meet somewhere in the middle and say it'll cost you around $500. And finally, the output, which is essentially whether you want to print your comic or have it online. This is up to you, but spoiler alert, the online one is going to be a lot cheaper because it costs nothing. Now that's a lot of info that I've thrown at you, and I've tried to keep it as concise as possible. So now I'm going to play with some numbers to show you how I'll save you that $20,000. This is a total of $21,400 roughly. If we're printing, then that goes up to $22,500. That's for a 100-page full cover graphic novel that we're getting 100 copies of. I use Mixam to calculate that, and it's a service that I've used before to print this comic as well as the other ones that I've done, and I definitely recommend it if you're going down the printed route. But compare their prices with local printers in your area. You may get a better deal, and establishing a good relationship with a printer can save you not just money but a lot of stress and headaches. Printers are your friend. Also support local, because that's always nice. Anyway, I made a bold claim at the top of this video, and this is how I'm going to turn that $22,500 into $2,500. First, sorry colorists, but you've got to go. That's $8,000 saved straight away. Letterers, sorry, but you're next. That's an extra $2,000, thank you very much. Nobody likes you editors, you're gone. That's not true, editors are great. But so's $1,000, so yeah. So that's $11,000 we've saved. Not bad, but we can do better. Because we ditched the color, our comic printing costs have gone from $1,100 to $750, which is a saving of $350. Granted, that's not quite as impressive, but every little helps. Now, I'm going to do some magic and slash the price even more by doing something that you might not like. I'm going to turn my 100-page graphic novel into a 20-page issue. I know, you want to make your epic big graphic novel. I understand. I've been there. But if you go for the 100-page graphic novel, that's still going to cost you at least $10,000. And you've already slashed about as much as you can without significantly impacting the artwork. If you make an issue instead of a graphic novel, you're essentially cutting your price by a fifth, which according to my back of the napkin maths is around $2,500 all in. Now, if you were to split your comic up into 5 individual issues, there is an additional cost that you wouldn't have had to deal with if you just did one long comic, and that is the cover art. You basically need 5 covers now instead of 1 because now you've got 5 separate issues or 5 separate books. And if we're averaging it out at 500 each, then that's going to cost you $2.5 grand. But you could also use those covers as art prints to sell, so it's not like it's a bad investment. Comics can be expensive, but just remember you don't need to go all in straight away. You can build things up slowly over time, which is much more manageable financially. The color can come later, and you can even hire a letterer if you're not satisfied with the job that you did. And you can combine all 5 of those issues once you've done them, and then you'll still have your 100-page graphic novel. You could do a separate print run. The point is, there are ways to manage your comic project over time without destroying your wallet. One of the single biggest killers to any comic is money, and I'll explain why with a little story. I was paid by a writer last year to draw their comic page, and I charged $80 per page. But there were weeks and sometimes months in between new pages being commissioned because your man had to save money for me and a colorist. Unfortunately, my circumstances changed to the point where I couldn't fit the project into my schedule anymore. And as a result, they decided to not continue with their comic. I'm irreplaceable, is what I'm saying. No, that's not true, but it's what I tell myself. That comic did end though. That part is true. And it sucks that so many comic projects end up this way. And it speaks to how easy it is to start a comic, but it's incredibly difficult to finish one. And if you watch this video, I hope you figure out your page count so you can plan your budget more accurately.